With the Cardinals' future full of opportunities and, most importantly, options, should they look into their NFC West back door for ideas? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. Go leave a review if you so desire. Leave a like, all those things. Everydayers, officially starting my 9th season hosting this podcast. I know the league year hasn't started yet. I know it starts in March, but technically, this is the beginning of the discussion regarding the future of the Arizona Cardinals. And it's going to be awesome. So I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to do. You know that I try to bring you original content, not just be like, oh, should the Cardinals trade for Micah Parsons? We talked about that 2 months ago. Okay, I'm not going to rehash that now because people are talking about it. I'm sure I'll bring it up at some point. We can discuss it, but we've already talked about that. You and I see into the future. So while everybody else is catching up, we can talk about other things. And I thought it was interesting, poking around, thinking about different ways to discuss the options that the Cardinals have for the future. And I couldn't help but shake how the Rams built their roster. And now it's, it looks different now. But from the Jared Goff 2016 year, 2017 through 2023, they did not have a first-round pick. They made 2 Super Bowls, they won 1, and they were in the playoffs 5 of 7 years with a 70-45 accumulated record over those years, that which they did not have a first-round pick. They traded for Jalen Ramsey, brought in Von Miller, and a couple other guys. Didn't have first-round picks, okay? So, and they traded Jared Goff. I think they gave up a first-round pick to Detroit in that deal as well. So I say that to say this. That is one way the Cardinals could build their roster. I'll discuss it more. The 49ers way in the second segment, still in the NFC West. They just drafted really well and had to pay a boatload of guys that they drafted. Is that the way the Cardinals are going? And how can they circumvent the debacles the 49ers are in every offseason with contract disputes, namely? And finally, it just can't be the Cardinals way. Because the Cardinals way, we know, since its inception, hasn't worked for the majority of the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the Rams. I'm going to talk about the 49ers in the next segment. I'm just going to give a little blurb about the Cardinals. Tomorrow, I'm going to have Travis Rogers from Locked On Rams join me to discuss with me exactly what the Rams way looked like over the last, 6 years or so, 7 years. And then hopefully I'll get my buddy Brian Peacock on for Thursday from Locked On 49ers to discuss what it like with the 49ers. And I think it's important to get some insight from people who have been on the ground level, so to speak, with those two organizations, both of which have had much more success naturally than the Cardinals have over the last decade. And then I'm going to get my buddy Marcus Mosher on, really with the 33rd team now, did Locked On NFL Draft for a while, I believe. Like, the dude is in deep with draft coverage. He's one of the most respected minds out there, one of my good friends who I trust with everything. So I'm going to get him on to talk a little draft talk on Friday. So the Rams way to reset between 2017 and 2023, those 7 seasons, they made the playoffs 5 times. They had a 70-45 record. They went to the Super Bowl twice and they won 1. Okay. So while I understand Sean McVay is a better coach than Jonathan Gannon right now, while I understand how they drafted outside of the first round was a masterclass. And while I understand there were guys like Jalen Ramsey who could be had at the time to plug and play, and Von Miller, and they had Aaron Donald already. Like, I get it's not the same, and it's also a very viable way to build a team. The Cardinals have over $70 million to spend, and this is something that I don't understand why. I talk about this from time to time. Like, every day, you'll hear me. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. But you'll hear me talk about this more if you hang around more. I don't understand why people get so upset when when anybody were to trade away draft picks to get a player. It's like, no, you're giving up picks. It's like, yeah, but you're getting a player who's ready to play tomorrow. Draft picks are the most overblown entity in professional sports, the most overweighted. Now, sure, stars come out of college. I understand how it works. The majority of people who get drafted in the NFL are busts. Busts aren't good enough to play at the NFL level. That's why the average thing, it was 3 years, a handful of years ago. It might be less than that now. If the Cardinals can trade away their first-round pick this year, their first-round pick next year, and get somebody ready to rock, do it. They don't need to get 1 second younger. They don't. Trey McBride is going to be the most valuable entity on this team moving forward, at least for the foreseeable future. Young. Marvin Harrison Jr., young. Paris Johnson Jr., young. Garrett Williams, young. Max Melton, young. Adrian Taylor-Demerson, young. Darius Robinson, young. Bijay Ojulari, young. They don't need to get younger. Michael Wilson, young. They don't need – Kyler Murray's young. They don't need to get younger. They don't need, oh, you know what, draft and let's develop this guy. Oh, let's hope this guy's ready to rock right away. No. Trading away the future is what people know. You're trading away all the future. The future's now. They've got the players. They just need stars. And stars can be had. Especially when you build a culture like the Cardinals have over the last couple of years. You need plug-and-play guys who can rock. And this is the only way by which I would crumple up the Cardinals must take an offensive lineman at 16 thoughts in the trash. Kobe, that's the only time they'd be gone is if the Cardinals were to trade 16 overall for a star. 16 overall plus for a star. You know who trades first-round picks? Teams who want to win. Now. So for Cardinals fans who think, nope, it's giving away too much. You know what? Try some wrong. Because trying quote-unquote right hasn't worked. Ever. Ever. Like literally ever. It's never worked. The Cardinals have never won anything. So when you look at what the Rams did, they just, we don't need picks. Bleep them picks. Bleep them. 5 playoffs in 7 years, 70-45 record, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win. I know it's not exactly the same scenario as the Cardinals. I know they're different organizations. Les Snead was on his way out. He was going to get fired. He was a laughing stock. He was at Steve Keim level. And then he's like, you know what? I'm not very good at drafting players. Let's just trade for players we know are good already. Jalen Ramsey, you're a Ram. Von Miller, you're a Ram. Let's go win a Super Bowl. Yeah, they drafted Aaron Donald. Best draft pick they made, obviously, out of Pitt. The Cardinals can do that. They are in quite literally the perfect spot to do that. And while the conventional thought is, oh, they're gonna mortgage their future for now, the future's already on the team. Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, Garrett Williams, Adrian Taylor-Demerson, Max Melton, Paris Johnson Jr., they've got their future. Go trade for superstars. They got all the picks. They've got all the money. Go do it. If they want to. Now, if they don't want to, which is more likely what will happen because, most things don't happen that people talk about. Most scenarios don't happen, contrary to popular belief. They're looking smack dab at the 49ers way. And what is that? We'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Prize Picks. Football season may be over, but basketball's in full swing, and there's no better way to stay on the game than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash, man. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. And I love this stuff. I nerd out on it because there's so many different ways Monty Ossenfort can go. That's why the thing that I was most excited about when Steve Keim was removed from office, and this isn't I guess it is tangentially, is the Cardinals restrictor plate was taken off. Now they have possibilities. They have opportunities because they don't have a GM who's completely inept at drafting. Because Steve Keim was genuinely inept at drafting. The best draft pick he made was when he moved up, I think it was 2017, to take Budda Baker to top of the second round. The reason why that's the best draft pick he made was because he saw something, traded up for it, got it, and it worked. He literally never did that again or before. So now Monty Ossenfort has knocked 2 drafts out of the park, not even comparatively speaking to the last bias, not comparatively speaking to the last regime. That's just, it worked. They've got a left tackle of the future. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be good. Max Melton's going to be good. Garrett Williams is CB1. Like, I don't know what more you want. Daedrian Taylor-Demerson looks like an absolute demon who could supplant Jalen Thompson this year. Michael Wilson's good. Like, I don't know what people expect. Trey Benson's going to be fine. He's done everything as flawlessly as you can, taking over the Travis mockery that was this crater of an organization the way it was left. So with that, enter the 49ers. John Lynch absolutely knocked drafts out of the park. Let's take away the Trey Lance. But I mean, like, Fred Warner, they have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. It's like, before trading for Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, like, they have guys who are just ready to rock. And I know I'm missing some. I know there's safety there. Mofunga, I believe they drafted also. But then you got to pay all of them. Okay. So that is something that the Cardinals are staring right in the face. With that, though, I know Trey McBride's going to get a contract extension imminently, but everybody else has 2 years left at least on their rookie scale deal. I think Garrett Williams might have one because he was a third-round pick. I think those are 3-year deals with an option for 4. So he could be a franchise tag guy after this year. I'm not exactly sure where, but it comes up real quick. So the Cardinals have this offseason to maximize still those guys being on the rookie scale deals, save Trey McBride. I mean, depending on what they do. I'm not exactly sure what they'll do. But this offseason, you could trade picks to get proven talent. You're going to need to get paid. And they've got that wiggle room, something the 49ers didn't do in a timely manner. Now, it was fantastic for 2 years. They had a Super Bowl run. But I believe, and then they lucked out with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy didn't happen. They would have been in a much worse spot. But I think they waited. I want to ask Brian Peacock later in the week. Hopefully I can get him on. They waited a beat too long. This is kind of like a Bill Belichick situation, but the opposite. Bill Belichick would always get rid of a player a year too early as opposed to a year too late. The Cardinals need to move a year too early as opposed to a year too late, because a year too late could pigeonhole them or handcuff them to not being able to make the moves that they have the flexibility and malleability to make now. They're in a very unique situation. So, and I'm kind of all over the place a little bit here. It's exciting to discuss because they've got so many options. It's exciting to discuss this unique spot. Like, and I'm not speaking in platitudes here, man. Like, this isn't the first time the Cardinals have had opportunities to completely re-energize and retool and just skyrocket into the atmosphere of perpetual relevancy. They just have bungled it or just have sat on their hands. They've got the young core ready to rock. You put 2 stars on this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they're a rocket ready to rip. I mean, rocket. They're a team that is ready to be relevant, like really relevant. I discussed, like I tweeted out The Cardinals aren't close yet. I talked about this yesterday. They're not close yet. Like, what I mean by that is if they played, and I know they both play in the NFC, just go with me here, okay? If the Cardinals played the Eagles in the Super Bowl 2 days ago, they would have lost 70-0. They would have probably given up 40-plus points, and they may not have scored. That's what I mean by they're not there yet. But with one offseason cycle, and that could mean trading away every single draft pick they have in 2025 for proven talent. I'm just saying as an exercise, and using every dollar they have to spend. They can compete next year. It's there for them. There are players who are unhappy elsewhere. It's not just Micah Parsons that we talked about 2 months ago. Max Crosby, Myles Garrett. Yeah, he wants to go to a contender. Okay, cool. Good luck getting the draft capital back and the players back, Browns. Oh, you know what, buddy? You deserve it. We'll send you there for a 6th-round pick so you can go compete for a Super Bowl. This is a business. These are employees. They get sent where they get sent the majority of the time. And the Cardinals, I promise you, would be a fringe contender if they traded for Myles Garrett, signed a couple other pieces. They would be a contender this year. And if they wouldn't, we'd be having different conversations about Kyler Murray. They're close in the sense that they're 2 or 3 star players away. And by star players, I mean like B-level players. I'm not talking about all-pro first-team guys. No. I'm talking about a stud pass rusher, an interior defensive lineman, and maybe an off-ball linebacker if Kazir White goes. The offense, and an offensive lineman, which I would assume that I would hope that they use 16 on. But listen, I'm doing this to show how many different options the Cardinals have path-wise to get to the same goal of making the playoffs next year. The one thing they can't do is the Cardinals' way. What does that mean? I think you do know already, but we're going to do 6 minutes on it. We'll commiserate together, and then, we'll hug it out and go on to the next day. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, and even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We've got options, man. We've got options. The one thing that can't happen is the Cardinals cardinaling again. Michael Bidwell not wanting to spend the money, them sticking and picking. Like, if the Cardinals if they don't make a splash in free agency, and a splash, yes, a splash, like, go get a big name guy, overpay him by a couple $1 million a year. Just do it. Just do it. It's not an original story. The Cardinals are close in the sense that they have to add a couple pieces. B.J. Ojulari coming back. We'll see. Darius Robinson's second year with hopefully a supporting cast in the interior defensive line, or whether he lines up at DN or on the interior. He just needs some help. He's a rookie. They've got 5 picks. What the Cardinals cannot do is flub this offseason or be passive. And if they flub this offseason and or be passive, that's a Michael Bidwell thing and not a Monty Ossenfort thing. And I know that it's already a Michael Bidwell thing. I know. We're here. We're in the circle of trust. Michael Bidwell outside the circle of trust. I get it. This is going to be a very telling offseason. This is a tell-all book without an author. What's Monty Ossenfort's capacity to be able to maneuver? How much risk are they willing to take when, as I've just described, there is no risk? Just pick the path. Pick the path. I am starting to slowly warm up, and it's going to go back and forth. I waffle, not waffle in the sense that I don't know what I think. It's more there's so many options. And if you want to be bold and you want to be calculated, Monty Oswald has proven that he is calculated. So if they take a swing, it'll be a calculated swing, understanding you reap the benefits of who you trade for while giving away a majority of your future top draft capital. Lest we forget, you know what Stephon Diggs was traded for? You know, Odell Beckham Jr. was traded for? Like, we're not talking about the Cardinals trading a first-round pick for a wide receiver like they did with Hollywood Brown. We're not talking about that. Oh, and really quick, because I get razzed for this every time. I know that Steve Keim drafted Trey McBride. That was the most idiotic pick, position-wise, I've ever seen a GM make. The fact that he drafted a tight end, it doesn't matter if it worked out. It's dumb luck for Steve Keim. The fact that he traded for a wide receiver and then drafted a tight end in the first 2 rounds when they needed corner and offensive linemen so obviously badly, that's why I don't even count that. That was dumb luck. He doesn't get credit for scouting when he's been so bad at it for a decade. He just falls into Trey McBride. Trey McBride's a great player. Steve Keim is an idiot for drafting him. They're just lucky that it worked out. Like, let's be honest. I digress. And we're back. That was a pretty bold squirrel moment there. I'll take it, though. What was it? I don't know. I forgot what I was saying. I was arguing with myself there. We were both on the same side. It was like it was me and somebody else on a debate team debating somebody else. If they're going to take a swing, you know that Monty Oswald is going to be calculated in a way that it's going to protect the team from future cratering. You do know that. They've got money. They've got over $70 million to spend. Everything lines up. Everything lines up for this offseason to be one of the most starry-eyed, holy bleep, are the Cardinals contenders now offseason? Has the capability and the potential and the jet fuel for that to happen. Michael Bidwell just got to let the spark lit. He's got the zip up. You just got to light that jet fuel. Will it happen? No idea. Rams way, 49ers way, doesn't really matter. Whatever the best way is, one thing's for certain. It just can't be the Cardinals way. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. Without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.